once again for the renegade master. Back 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 once again for the renegade master.
So hey guys, here we are and we are back for another episode. But this time, no, we are not talking about Love is Blind. We are now going to be talking about Married at First Sight Australia. And this will be series 10 that we'll be talking about, episode 1. Because as I said from my last video, when I talked about Love is Blind, that I was going to move on to Married at First Sight Australia. And then hopefully come May 24th, I am looking forward to the Queer Ultimatum. So looking forward to that. Hoping actually that they portray any of the people on there properly, especially in terms of the LGBTQIA community, because we always know that sometimes the media doesn't portray that community in the best light and kind of sometimes make us look like oversexed individuals when actually we are not. So here's hoping, fingers crossed, that they actually make it look good. And it brings about certain talking points. So, as I said, we'll move on to Married at First Sight Australia. And I just wanted to actually highlight the differences because I've watched Married at First Sight Australia and I've Married at First Sight USA and Married at First Sight UK. And I would say when the UK first started off with it, they did start with the concept that the USA go with, especially when the experts actually have like psychiatrists and psychologists and sociologists in it. But then part way through, they changed and went to the Australian version of it. So really, to be fair, I can't really say how much of these experts actually help because there isn't necessarily like a good positive outcome with some of these people, because sometimes I ask the question is, where in the hell do they find these people to go on these shows, and how do they vet them? Because some of them are abusive as all get out, but we'll get to that point further on into the program. So you know the experiment focuses basically on finding love. They have 10 brides and have 10 grooms that they match together with people, as we know, that they've never met, but within these ones they have to get married straight off. So the time that they say they've found you someone should be the time that you're thinking, okay, I'm engaged at that point. So any other dalliances, you need to basically just fuck them off. Right, the other way, because basically you've assigned onto this program to say that you have trouble finding someone, or you can't find someone to love, or you're at the time and you're ready to get married, basically. So they go on and they show some of the people. So they show Lyndall, who's diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. Her life expectancy was low, so she thought that she wouldn't be around for much longer. Then she's found this miracle drug, basically, which she's now taking, which she says is now going to be expecting to put in another 40 years on her life. So that's why she's decided, well, I want a relationship, I want to get married, I want to have children. So she's come on this show. Then you get to meet Bronte, who, she's a little bit naive because she believes that love will conquer all. But hey ho, we'll see how her role plays out. So then you meet Melissa, who's the older woman of the group, is very highly sexed and shows that she's very highly sexed. Tries to have some conversations with the young girls as they come in and they all meet each other. But I do notice that with one person, which I think is Melinda, she tries to make the same comment that she made to all of them about sex and what she wants to do. And Melinda was a little bit, I don't really know ya, so I don't know why you're talking to me like this. She did kind of go in a little bit, even when Melinda said, she won't be having sex on the first night. Now, you let me know what you think about that process, because yes, albeit they're married, but they're still strangers at the end of the day. So would you go all in on the first night? Me being me, it would depend. I think it would depend on the chemistry of the person that I've just met, and if we're both vibing, then I would want to let it naturally lead to that. But if we're not vibing, then no, we probably will not have sex on the first night. But at the end of the day, it's each to their own. They each make their own decision on what they want to do when it comes towards the wedding night. So then we move on and get to meet some of the guys. You've got Cameron, who I think might be the youngest. Well, no, Ollie's the youngest of the group, to be fair. But Cameron has never had a girlfriend, never really been in a relationship, This will be his first relationship. Well, you know, he's come on and he's going to get married, and he knows he's going to get married to someone. And he lives in the outback, and basically he works away quite a lot. So the only complaint I would have with Cameron at the moment is I don't understand your idea of coming on a show like this, basically, because you've not been in a relationship before ever. You've not seen how you would interact and work within that relationship. You've no experience of it at all, and you throw yourself in at the deep end in terms of what you're looking for and what you want. But as I said, it's each to their own in terms of how they make the decisions to go on this show. You meet Jesse as well, who's a celebritant. I think they call them in Australia. Over here we call them registrars, and I think in USA you have to be an ordained minister to perform marriages. And then you go back to the girls, and then you go on to meet a woman named Sandy, who's basically breaking some of her social norms because her family are Indian Punjabi. So she's basically saying that she's basically breaking the social norms within her culture in terms of coming on this show. She as well has never been with someone, and she as well has never had a relationship with a guy. So this will be all new to her. The hope would be that whoever she's paired with doesn't embarrass her or treat her like crap, basically, because that's what her family are afraid of will happen to her. They would the person who she's with would disrespect her if she comes on this show. But as I said, as time goes on, we will see any type of things play out, and that's all we can do. We move on to the experts. They come in and they chat to the groups on a whole, basically tell them why they're there, what's going to happen, and how it's going to work out, and wishes them all luck. For me, because the experts say that they've been digging deep for 6 months, I don't think that's enough really to get to know people. And if you think about it, whereas in the beginning, like with the UK one, like still do with the USA one, they used to have a psychologist and a sociologist involved in the process of looking at each of these couples and who they were going to pick and who they were going to put together. Whereas now it's kind of like they're asking kind of deep questions, but not too deep, and it's kind of mundane in terms of anyone can say anything to your face in order to try and get on the show, but then they can turn into a completely different person, as you've seen throughout most of these reality shows in terms of when people get on there. Because my thing is when people start to show abusive traits, and you see that time again on these types of shows, the experts, in my opinion, don't actually do anything to help the person who's getting abused. They don't do anything. They don't stop the experiment for them. They don't step in. It seems as though as well that the victim is always sat quietly while the abuser's always talking over them, and then they're looking for solutions. And even if the abuser says stay and the other person wants to leave, the person who's getting abused has no option but to stay with their abuser for another week, which I don't think is fair. And that's how I see it. I don't know how they vet these people properly or how they can vet these people properly, but if you like have an idea, then please put it in the comments and let me know. But I think most of these marriages do fail quite quickly, and they do have some significant issues with how the people act and react within those relationships. So then we get the first match, which is Lyndall and Cameron. The experts talk about them and say they believe that they're a good match because they are open to love and they're both adventurers. As time will tell, because it's early stages, we're only just meeting them, so time will tell. We will carry on and see what happens between them two. Then we have the second match, which is Harrison and Bronte. And I will say one thing about Harrison. He's an arrogant person. I know it's first view only, but this man is coming off like holier than flipping thou. I already don't like him. He's already on the back foot with me. Some of the things that he said, nah, I'm just not feeling it. I'm not feeling it at all. And the experts think that he has a dominant persona, but they say don't let that fool us, as he's a great father. Now, someone can be a great dad because you're dealing with a child. Someone can be a great dad, but be an arsehole to their partner. So the two do not make a difference in that sense. They're two separate entities and two separate issues to me. He basically came on that show saying he can't find anybody. He did have an ex. His ex was the person who got pregnant. Basically, he was engaged to this ex. She cheated on him, apparently, according to Harrison. We don't know the full story of that, but apparently she cheated on him. And he says that from seeing his son all the kind of constantly all the time, now it's to every other weekend. But as I said, I just get bad vibes of this guy. Bad vibes. But you not let me know what you think in the comment, because I really, 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 really don't get good things from this guy at all, especially in the first instances and how he's talking and how he talks about women and how he perceives he is towards women. Bronte is very much about old school love, and she talks about what she expects and that she's close with her family and she tells them everything. She's also been hurt quite a few times, and it's usually by men who show narcissistic tendencies. So again, we will have to see what happens and how this couple play out. We go down to Lyndall and Cameron, who are getting married first. Lyndall hasn't told Cameron, or Cameron is not aware of the fact that she does have cystic fibrosis. I do understand that she does tell him that after they're married, but they seem to, first impressions, they seem to really like each other. They seem to really gel and get on with each other, which is what we'd hope for. You know, they do their vows, they do what you would do at a wedding, and then him and Lyndall do go off and have a little chat, and that's where Lyndall basically tells him that, you know, she lives with cystic fibrosis, and he was quite open to that because he said he knows a lot about it and he'd sadly had a friend that passed from it. So she was able to speak to him freely about that, and he made that a safe space for her to talk, which was nice to see, to be fair. And then we go on to Bronte and Harrison's wedding, and oh my God, the drama. Not 5 minutes into the bloody wedding, but the drama. The geezer's standing on the bloody plinth, as you do, waiting for his bride to come. He's cocky as all get out, like absolutely cocky as all get out. The sister does say to him that, you know, he's a lucky man to be getting Bronte. And then he turns around and says to her, she's not doing too badly herself. Now, it's kind of like the sister got the calculated head on and took his number straight away, because she believed him to be really cocky, and hoped for him to be a nice person. Set himself straight on the back foot with the sister all the way through that. Sister was having none of it. I would say, like, when Bronte came around the corner, then you get Bronte coming down the stairs, and when Bronte came around the corner and he looks at her, at first I was like, there's nothing coming from this man at all to say that he likes this woman. And then it's all of a sudden he just says that she's stunning, and she took his breath away at first, that she blew him away, and she was happy with that. So when it gets to the point where the celebrant says, forever hold your peace, now you see the camera pan off to a girl in pink, who I think is Bronte's friend, one of Bronte's friends, to a girl in pink, and she looks so unimpressed. And I'm thinking, oh shit, here it goes. There's going to be some motherfucking drama afoot here. Total drama afoot. So I was ready and I was waiting for it, and it didn't disappoint. No, it did not. It did not disappoint at all. And I'll tell you for why it didn't disappoint. Because there's a story coming with Harrison. Yes, there is. So, you know, all the bloody vows are taken. They've spoken to each other. Harrison's doing his rounds. So then the friend in the pink talks to Harrison for a minute minute, basically saying to him, what does he think of Bronte, and hope Bronte's a real one. She's here for the right reasons. But are you here for the right reasons? And then all of a sudden, he's like, oh, I hear someone calling me. And then he walks off. So I'm like, what's going on here? What is going on here? I can't wait for it. Wait for it. So as he's buggered off, he's laughing and joking with his friends. So her friend basically goes over and asks Bronte to come to the side. She needed to talk to him. So she explains to Bronte basically that she knew who Harrison was, because apparently before Harrison was coming on to this show, he'd already had someone, a 20-year-old someone, promising her the ends, basically letting her know that he's going on to maths, that he's not really looking to stay married to this woman and wants her to stay waiting for him on the outside. Now, bearing in mind, this woman did not come with nothing. This woman was able to show Bronte evidence of the text messages, the photographs of them two together, the photographs of Harrison together, because you could tell that Bronte didn't believe a word of this that was coming out of this woman's mouth. Now, stick to that thing where I said that the woman gave evidence to show that Harrison is not the person that he says he is. Okay, so that conversation ends right there. So what Bronte then does is, I think, she goes back. Let me check my notes. I think she goes back to her sister first before she speaks to Harrison. I think she goes to her sister first, but don't quote me on it. You can put it in the comments if I'm wrong. But I'm sure she speaks to her sister first before she goes to Harrison. And basically has it out, tells her sister what the friend has just said in regards to Harrison. And basically the sister was straight on it, like, I knew it. I knew he was not to be trusted. So what the hell is he here for if he's already promised people, a person on the outside, that this is what he's going to do? Now, bearing in mind, Bronte saw all this evidence. So she takes that information back over to Harrison and basically sits Harrison down, and straight away out of the mouth is, who is this 20-year-old that you've promised to see after this show? And at first, Harrison was stuck for motherfucking words. That man was dumb like a fucking lettuce. He could not speak. And all I saw was his face just go absolutely like bright red, like a motherfucking beetroot. So I think that was because he was slowly turning cogs and thinking, shit, what am I going to say? So then he turns around and he feels if basically, first that says, doesn't acknowledge that she's telling the truth or who the hell she's talking about. Says, I don't know what you're talking about. So then Bronte turns around and tells him, well, I've seen X, Y, and Z. I've seen the text messages. I've seen the photograph of you saying you're packing your suitcase and you're going off to maths to marry this woman and it's not going to be serious. And then as soon as it finishes, you're back on the outside. You promise you're going to go be with her. He turns around and he basically is quite belligerent with it, because he turns around and he says, well, I've dated quite a few people before this show came up. Now that tells me one thing. You are not hurting for female companionship, so why have you applied to come on this show? Because right now you're making Bronte look like a bloody dickhead. Do you know what I mean? You're making the show look like a whole bunch of pants, because obviously they didn't vet you properly in regards to getting married to someone, because you have no problem getting in a relationship with other people. So then when Bronte pushes him even further, he said, yes, there was someone on the outside, but that is completely finished. But then Bronte says, well, why would she get the idea that you're just doing this for a bit of fun, and then when you get out, you're going to go and be with her? Would you have given her that impression? Now he's umming and ahhing, blah, 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 you know, fucking stutter. Anyway, back to it. So he's stuttering like a mofo. So then he turns around and he says, well, I may have given her that impression by not telling her directly. So basically what he's doing is laying the playing field to say that whoever the girl is, he's discrediting Bronte's friend and saying that this girl is basically jealous. And maybe he didn't explain it clearer to her, but he was telling Bronte that that is completely over, that they're no longer together, and he did not promise her anything. So remember the key word in terms of what Bronte said to the friend who was showing her the evidence, that she will make this marriage work come hell or high water, basically, because that's her mentality and that's where her brain is right now. So although she's upset, and I think she doesn't really believe Harrison at this point, she wants to make this marriage work. She is not going to be looking like a sucker up in this place. She's just married this man. She likes this man. So he is not going to make her look like a sucker. So she decides that she's going to stay married to this man. So then all the reception is called in. She's going and having this reception. She's kind of in tears, and she's saying, now I'm going to have to sit here and listen to him expounding on about how we're great, how he can't wait, being married to Bronte, and he's glad that he's there, and she's going to have to listen to all these speeches. But I'm like, well, you chose to stay there, because there is time throughout this experiment where you could turn around and say, actually, I don't feel I can stay married to this person because of X, Y, and Z. But anyway, as we move on, it does go back to Lyndall and Cameron's wedding. But as I said, because there was so much to talk about in regards to Harrison and Bronte's wedding, there isn't that much to talk about in regards to Lyndall and Cameron's wedding. So after all of that, we know that Lyndall and Cameron are married, and Bronte and Harrison are married. Yes, they've had the current blip. Bronte's decided not to do anything about the information that she's been given, even though she had that chat with Harrison. Didn't fill me with any comfort for her on her behalf, but she got comforted from it, so she stayed married to this man. So then we go on to like the next episodes where you see more of Bronte of Harrison's turmoil, which I'll then speak about then. We see that another couple gets married, so it shows Sandy talking about and getting ready for her marriage. And then we also see one of the other guys, Jesse, who I said who's a celebritant, who's going to get married in the next episode. And that next episode will be coming very soon. And as I say, if you like listening to me and hearing what I have to say, please put your comments in the comment section. And please don't forget to subscribe and like and turn your notifications on. And I shall be back again soon. Speak to you soon.